Well, it's time now to concentrate on this weekend's Breeders' Cup meeting at Santa Anita in California. And the first race that we're going to pay attention to is the Breeders' Cup Distaff. Here are some of the leading contenders.
The leader is Princess Violet. The leader by a length and a half moving into the far turn. America's second, and just a gentle reminder from Johnny Velasquez for Untappable. And there she goes on a march now after a 45-4 opening half mile. So Princess Violet is targeted by heavily favored Untappable, just a half length behind now. A break of another 5, and America couldn't keep up with the front runners. House Rules is now called on for run. Aqua Regia trails the field. And as the field comes to the top of the stretch, Johnny Velasquez is just a passive partner aboard Untappable, who takes the lead at the top of the lane. Untappable coming to the 8th pole, just opening up at will. Princess Violet, no match for Untappable. For Untappable is matchless. Oh, look at this. This is just poetry in four-legged motion. Untappable, her march to a title, continues unabated here.
Down the backstretch they go, and Broken Sword all alone out here. Broken Sword has it by almost 3 now. Aya Tapper begins to cut into that lead from second. 50 Shades of Hay pushed along at the rail. Up alongside, doing hard time again. Piranda getting a little closer, is now only 5 off the leaders, and more chocolate last. Into the turn they go, and Broken Sword still the one to catch. Broken Sword by 2. Io Tapper now coming after her. Broken Sword, Io Tapper. Piranda moving up on the far side, doing hard time again. 50 Shades of Hay. They are coming to the quarter pole. Broken Sword, but now here comes Io Tapper with a big run. And Io Tapper moving up ominously. Broken Sword's tough though. She's trying to hold on. Homeward bound, and Io Tapper takes the lead. Broken Sword's trying to re-rally on the inside, running on late. Piranda past the 16th pole. Io Tapper shifting out. Io Tapper just in front. Broken Sword comes again. Io Tapper, Broken Sword. Io Tapper, what an absolute thriller.
Close hatches 46-3. It's a bruising fraction over the money going here, but it is still close hatches on top, rounding the far turn. Princess of Silmar now just 2 lengths behind at the midway point on the far turn. In between horses, it's Antipathy. 50 Shades of Hay in a drive, but no real response yet. Farther back at Stanwyck, and Close Hatches is still humming along with a clear lead here. Close Hatches hand-ridden into the stretch. At the top of the stretch is a 5-length lead. 50 Shades of Hay comes through on the inside. Antipathy between horses. A sputtering Princess of Silmar. Then Stanwyck on the far outside. And they're coming down to the finish. Close Hatches and Joel Rosario. Close Hatches. Love the mud. She was a monster in the mud this afternoon at the Spa.
Sweet Reason and House Rules are side by side. Those two hit the half-mile pole just about 5 lengths off the lead. After that comes Vera Amore, Little Alexis, and beginning to make some progress from the back on the outside is Joint Return. The half mile was 46-3. They move to the far turn. JoJo Warrior continues to lead the way. Cassatt trying to get to her second, and here comes Untappable now. She begins to make her move 3 wide as they approach the quarter pole. Sweet Reason in with a chance. She's now gaining ground quickly in behind the front runners, but as they approach the top of the stretch, here comes Untappable now making her run on the outside. JoJo Warrior trying to dig in down at the inside, and Sweet Reason will try to sustain her bit on the outside. They're coming to the last furlong. Untappable forges a short lead. On the outside, Sweet Reason closing in. JoJo Warrior holding tough. Untappable, short lead with a 16th to go. She's beginning to edge away. It will be the incomparable Untappable. Untappable's got it by a length on the line.
Belle Galantine now by almost 4 lengths over Stop Charging Maria. Endless Chatter down at the rail. And then it's Toasting, who's asked for a bit more and is coming on through. Stanwyck is 5th. Farther back, it's 50 Shades of Hay and Oasis at Midnight. All chasing Belle Galantine, who ran 3/4 in 1:11-1. Belle Galantine by 3 lengths as they come for the quarter pole. Stop Charging Maria, Endless Chatter, and Toasting as they turn for home. Belle Galantine trying to go wire to wire here, and she's in front by 4. Stop Charging Maria in second, then Endless Chatter, Toasting, and Stanwyck. Belle Galantine pouring it on in the stretch. The Beldame belongs to Belle Galantine, a 7-length winner. Stop Charging Maria was second.
They're the top two into the far turn. They begin matching strides. 2 lengths in front of Sharuk in third. 3 more back to Molly Morgan. 3 back of that one to Got Lucky. And Don't Tell Sophia last. Ria Antonia puts ahead in front, but Close Hatches is still right there toward the inside. These two off the far turn together. And then 3 more lengths back to Sharuk. Ria Antonia from the outside has the lead. Close Hatches is still there, but needs to find more. And here comes Don't Tell Sophia with a big rally on the outside. Don't Tell Sophia had lost contact with the field on the backstretch, and she has taken the lead in the final furlong of the Juddmonte Spinster. Close Hatches backs up to 4th. Don't Tell Sophia and Joe Rocco Jr. to take it.
And this is the lineup and the betting for the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff at 11:35 p.m. on Friday. The French challenger L'Amour de ma Vie is 12-1, Tis Midnight 6-1, Ayatap at 8, Belle Galantine is 7s, 33-1, Unbridled Forever and Stanwyck. Don't Tell Sophia under Joe Rocco Jr., who stormed home in the previous VT we saw, is 7-1, Valiant Amelia 33s, Ria Antonia 14s, Untappable and Close Hatches at 7-2. James, now I obviously won't even begin to suggest that I know as much as anybody else on this, but from what I understand, Untappable and Close Hatches were the leading fillies going into the race. Close Hatches, though, comes here off her worst run of the year, though?
Yeah, and that was an excellent montage we put together there by our director, Steve. And I think that the 4 horses really that stand out on form are the 2 at the head of affairs. Untappable, the brilliant Kentucky Oaks winner, last year's second, a multiple Graded Stakes heroine, Close Hatches, and then marginal contenders include Ayotapa and Belle Galantine, both of which we saw. The problem with Close Hatches and Untappable is they're both coming off their worst performances, actually. Although Untappable was victorious in the Cotillion there, which is the Grade 1 at Philadelphia Park we saw, she struggled home well below her brilliant 120s best. Now, excuses have been forwarded for, as always is the case, and supposedly she's been trained for the race. If she fires an earlier season effort, she'll be very hard to beat. Of Close Hatches, well, last year she was second in this race, but a bit disappointing, and she looked tired and bedraggled after a hard campaign. Yep. Is history repeating itself again? You can't really always categorise horses as fitting the same pattern each year. Yeah. But certainly her last defeat when she was only 4th at Keeneland to Don't Tell Sophia was a disappointing effort. Perhaps the leaders overcooked it on that occasion. But still, I think there's reasons to be concerned. Of the 2 horses I mentioned who are marginal contenders, Belle Galantine's 2 biggest wins, the Delaware Handicap, and as we just saw there, the Beldame at Belmont, were with the benefit of an easy lead. She figures to find things harder up front this time, but she's a horse who, if she does get away with a soft lead, is very hard to beat.
Close Hatches won't let her have that, though, would you?
Unlikely, and there are others too as well who could hassle her up front. The Californian filly Ayotapa, there we saw her in victory, but since then she's been beaten in the Zenyatta Stakes by last year's winner of the Distaff, who won't be defending her title in Beholder. But she was also beaten, and comfortably beaten, by Bob Baffert's improving Tis Midnight, who you saw on that caption. He's also quite strongly fancied. The problem with Tis Midnight and the deep Keeneland closer that we saw, Don't Tell Sophia, is that they're miles behind Untappable and Close Hatches at the best of those 2 fillies. So this is a race which is, you've got
putting question marks over a lot of runners here.
And that's what the hallmarks of a good Breeders' Cup race, in that it's competitive. We've got horses trying to hold on to their form after a hard season in Graded Stakes company, and then these darker contenders who are coming through. And to my mind, in the Breeders' Cup, history has favoured the horse who's getting better over the one who's trying to hang on to past glories. So we'll see if that plays out in the same way in this particular race.
And in that sense, James, regarding one of the statistics that is suited to Untappable, who is the Kentucky Oaks winner, only 1 horse in 14 has managed to win the Kentucky Oaks and the Distaff in the same year.
And
that was Shardo back in 2004. So the stats say she's going to struggle, and that bears out what you're saying about horses trying to hang on to their form come Breeders' Cup meeting.
Yeah, there are two reasons. There's a rather nefarious reason why it might be the case, and there's a plain old honest-to-goodness reason. Well, first of all, I'll tackle the latter, and that is the obvious intuition being that a horse who's been running hard can't carry on running hard forever, and if it meets horses who are trained for the race in what will be the most demanding physical encounter of the season, it's not surprising some might fall. The other thing, and you won't hear this from another British handicapper, I doubt, is that you really have got to, unless you're a complete naive fool, look at the past record of some of these trainers when the drug testing is at its most intense on Breeders' Cup. Trainers, to me, in America seem to have pockets of success in various states where it's easier to get away with perhaps using medication than it is in others. And so one thing you've really got to be aware of as you follow this meeting through is the stables whose horses are running well, because that does tend to correlate at the Breeders' Cup. And so you've got to look down. I'm not going to mention any names for fear of litigation, but I'm sure if you follow the sport, you'll be aware of who the likely suspects are. And if their horses are running well, then follow their horses in this race. If they're not, then play against them. Yeah.
There is one European runner in the race, L'Amour de ma vie at the top, Maxime Guillon, Madame Pierre Brandt. A filly who's done pretty well. She's clearly got a lot of talent. She ran well out in Dubai. She was a good second at Royal Ascot behind Integral. What are her chances, James, of putting up a show on dirt against some smart horses?
Well, lots of talent. She's done it on an artificial surface before, hasn't she, at Deauville? And that, of course, a very different environment to the one she'll face here. But still, she's got ability, and if there is anything to the notion that American racing is at a slightly weaker ebb, and that perhaps some of these horses can't show their form on the big day for one reason or another, then a European parachuting in with good form, like L'Amour de ma vie, could well be a contender. She's a big unit, and physically the type to take to dirt racing. It is a stretch to name her as the winner, and on form she's nowhere near as good as Untappable. And a couple of the others as well. But I wouldn't rule her out.
Well, that's one of the questions I'll ask you in relation to L'Amour de ma vie, and we would talk about it later with Toast of New York. It was interesting reading interview with Michael Buckley talking about Toast of New York, and he was saying he was speaking to other trainers, and they are telling him that Toast of New York looks like a dirt horse. What are they seeing?
Well, you shouldn't need them to tell him, really, should he? It's completely obvious and always has been throughout the horse's career. And I'm actually, quite frankly, amazed the owner is saying something like as naive as that at this stage. It's totally obvious. It always has been. Jamie Osborne's known it from day one. He's told me from day one.
If you could explain to us when people say, he looks like a dirt horse.
Right. There are various reasons why horses may be predisposed to running their best races on dirt or on grass. First of all is the style of racing, which is different on the two surfaces. Because of the physical requirement of getting out of kickback, dirt races are, by and large, overly strongly run. In other words, there is negative acceleration in the second part of the race. Horses get tired. And so horses who don't have early pace tend to be at a significant disadvantage because they end up in a very poor track position. They get pelted with kickback, and they have to lose ground by running wide to reach contention. And often they're just not fit enough to run on dirt either, or tough enough. The second thing is the actual physical nature of the surface itself. Grass turf, most types of turf, particularly firm turf, has got more integrity than dirt, by which I mean that when a horse places its hoof down and tries to get traction off the surface, there's more there's a more solid collision between the horse's hoof and the ground. On dirt, if you look slow-mos, a horse's hoof slips slightly, more than on grass. Horses slip on grass a little bit as well, but not as much as dirt. And so again, it requires perhaps more conditioning to the actual requirement of running over the surface, more habituation from a horse. In the same way that if you ever watch a young child, and we've both got children, run across a muddy field for the first time, 9 times out of 10 they fall flat on their face the first time, because they have no idea that you need to adopt a different cadence of stride. And you need to shift your balance a bit to compensate for the different nature of collision between foot and surface. And although I'm pleased to say horses don't fall flat on their face when they run on dirt, there's a similar thing going. So habituation to the surface through training and through racing is also a significant factor.
Excellent. That was tremendous. I appreciate that. And
I'll try my best.
I hope people at home enjoyed that explanation from James. And we've got lots more chat to come on the Breeders' Cup. We've also got a very good race coming up at Kempton.